Good afternoon and welcome again to the Edinburgh World Writers' Conference, Izmir at Yaşar University. It's my pleasure to introduce the final afternoon's events, the theme of which will be a future for the novel. The way things will proceed this afternoon, we will start off with a keynote and a response from Inci ARAL and Denise MINA, and then we shall have time for conversation, time for discussion, take a coffee break, and then return for a larger panel discussion on the same theme, the future of the novel. Okay, before we get started, just a couple of technical reminders. Once again, headphones are available for bilingual translation, and you will also find that a feedback form has been left in your seat, and we'd be very pleased if you would like to offer us some feedback on your thoughts about the conference, and if you could then leave any forms that you complete at the table by the doors to this building. We would appreciate that. Again, reminders that the conference also continues on the website and through Twitter discussions, the addresses for which you can find on the screen and in your programs. Okay, I would like to introduce and welcome our chair for this afternoon's sessions, Professor Dr. Ahmet Sipahioglu, who teaches here at Yaşar University in the Faculty of Communications. We are surrounded, however, by talented writers, of which Ahmet Hoca is one. His academic writing has focused, among other things, on the history of humorous graphic art in Turkey. He's also the writer of 3 novels, the first of which was titled Kavunlu Naturmut, which is such a wonderful title I have to translate it, Still Life with Melon. His second novel was 1929, or 1929, and his third novel was Tepeli Taklak, which was the winner of the Oğuz Atay Novel Prize in the year 2012. Thank you very much.
Evet, şimdi konumuz romanın geleceği.
Re-mention that this session is entitled The Future of the Novel. I thought it would be the death of the novel, and I checked on Wikipedia, and Wikipedia told me the novel is not dead, so we still have a future to discuss of the novel, and we think likewise, the novel is not dead, but since Wikipedia knows all the answers to all the questions we might have, I thought let's first check on Wikipedia and then write my
paylaşayım. Şimdi 50 yıl önce, evet,
there is something I remembered yesterday.
50 yıl önce
approximately 50 years ago, if memory serves well, when I was reading novels, I think I was approximately 10 years of age or so,
bir başka türlü bir etkisi vardı o
kitabın. Yani nasıl anlatsam şey gibi geliyor bana, böyle okuduğum yer ilkokulun kütüphanesiydi herhalde. Böyle hep şeyle hatırlarım, mazot kokusu, böyle orayı tahta döşemeleri mazotla siliyorlardı herhalde o zaman. Böyle garip bir koku vardı, talaş vardı yerlerde falan ama çok etkileyici gelmişti bana yani roman. Çok etkileyici bir şeydi. Ne okumuştum? Jules falan okumuştum galiba. Bir de değişik bir şeydi yani. O zaman etrafta televizyon yok tabii. Sinemaya da öyle pek gidilmiyor. Televizyon yok, sinema yok, internet yok, hiçbir şey yok. Görsel de fazla bir şey yok. Sadece in the visual sense, there was not much there. The only exceptions being the
bence o zamanlar
newspapers
yazının daha
and
bir
the
ağırlığı
books.
vardı.
So
Yani
what I'm trying to
dünya
say is
yazıyla
that
kurulmuş bir dünyaydı.
writing
Böyle yazıyla
had
anlatılan
much
bir
more of an
dünyaydı.
impact back in the days.
Şimdi
The
ise
world and everything that happened
yazının
in the world
eski
surrounding
ağırlığı
us
sanki
was expressed through
kalmamış gibi
writing.
geliyor
And
bana.
now,
Bilmiyorum. Tabii
nowadays I
bunu
get the
tartışmak
feeling
lazım.
that the
En son
visual has
işte
replaced
Salman
the
Rushdie
written.
şey dedi,
And,
nerede Guardian'da
I
galiba
think
yazdı.
Salman Rushdie, if I'm
Şey
not
dedi,
mistaken,
bundan
said
sonra
in The
dedi romanın
Guardian
geleceği dizi
that
filmlerdir dedi.
the future of
Ben de
the
dedi bundan sonra
novel
dizi
will
film
consist
senaryosu yazacağım dedi.
will consist
İşte
of
Mad
TV
Men'e örnek verdi.
series.
Ya dedi ne kadar harika bir şey, bayılıyorum,
That is
hastasıyım Mad
Salman
Men'in.
Rushdie,
O
am
milyonlarca
going to
insan seyrediyor
pursue
ama
a
bizim
career in
kitaplarımızı
TV
o kadar
series,
okuyan yok
play
dedi. Böyle bir şey
script
yaptı.
writing.
Ondan sonra
I think he paid reference
bir
to
de
Mad
tabii
Men or
şu
something
var,
like that.
bu kadar fazla görselliğin ön plana çıktığı bir dünyada
In
yani
a world
televizyon,
where
sinema
the
gibi araçların
visual
çok fazla
is
gündemde
so
olduğu
much
bir
in the
dünyada.
foreground, that is
Bazen
TV
düşünüyorum, acaba diyorum,
and
yazarın,
the internet, etc.
mantığı da yani
I
yazarın
keep telling myself,
aklı da sinematik mi hale geldi? Yani dünyaya bakarken
or I
ister
wonder
istemez
rather whether the
bundan
mind
etkileniyor
and the
mu? Çünkü
mindset
mesela
of the
Dostoyevski
author, the
okuyorsunuz,
writer,
Anton
has
Çehov
become
okuyorsunuz.
visual as well. Whether that changed.
Orada başka bir şey
You're
var sanki.
reading
Yani
Dostoyevsky or
tabii
Anton
sinema öncesi
Chekhov
ve bu kadar görselliğin
and
dolaşıma
the
girmediği
like,
bir
and
dünyayı
what is written
anlatıyor.
there
Hep
is something
referanslar
completely
hep
different.
başka romanlara, başka
The
kitaplara,
references that are paid in
gazetelere
those
falan ait. Tren istasyonları,
that
şunlar
are
bunlar yani.
made in those books
Böyle bir şey
are
yani günümüze
always
ait
references
sinematik
paid
duyarlılık
to a
yok.
scene at a train
gibi
station
gözüküyor.
or
Bu
having
acaba bu
something
kadar
to do with
sinematik ve
nature,
görsel
etc.
duyarlılık, günümüzün duyarlılığı roman için iyi mi?
And I'm wondering whether
Yoksa
that
kötü mü?
visual
Tabii.
sensitivity that
Bunu
has
da
come
ayrıca
about
tartışmak lazım.
nowadays
Şimdi ben
is a good
bu
thing for the novel or
kötümser mi,
not.
iyimser mi
That's a
olduğu belli olmayan
question I
girişten sonra
post.
sözü
And after this
İnce
either
Hanım'a
optimistic or pessimistic introductory speech, I'm not sure, I hand over the mic to İnci Aral.
Hoş geldiniz değerli
Welcome,
konuklar.
distinguished guests.
Edebiyat dünyasında romanın geleceği için sürekli kaygı
In the
beslenir.
literary world, there seems to be constant fear
Ve
for the
sık
future
sık
of
da
the novel, and
romanın
the question
ölmekte
of
olup
whether
olmadığı
the
sorgulanır.
novel is actually dying out or not
Cervantes'in
is put
Don
with alarming
Quixote'u
regularity. The
ile
novel,
doğduğu
which
kabul
is
edilen
widely held to have
roman,
come into existence with the
18. ve
publication of
19.
Cervantes's Don
yüzyıl
Quixote,
boyunca
flourished
serpilip
and took firm
yerini
hold in the
sağlamlaştırdı.
18th and 19th centuries.
İlk gelecek tartışmaları
The
ise
first worries about
Jane
the
Austen,
future
Stendhal ve
surfaced
Flaubert
as
gibi
the era
yazarların
of Jane
dönemi
Austen,
kapandığında
Stendhal and
başladı.
Flaubert drew to a close.
Geleneksel romandan
In certain
uzaklaşıldıkça
circles, the fear continued, however, to
türün
grow
biteceği
that
korkusu
the genre would die out
özellikle
as
kimi
it moved
çevrelerde
away from the more
artarak
traditional
sürdü.
novel.
Tabii bir
course,
ölüm söz konusu edilince cenazeyi
There were
kaldırmak
those
için
who readily
bekleyenler de
expected
çok
the
oldu.
announcement of its funeral,
Ama
the
roman bir
funeral of the
türlü
novel,
ölmedi.
but the novel
Ölmüyor
did not die then, and it
Dipdiri,
didn't want to
son derece
die, and
doğrudan bir
neither
biçimde
is it dying now. Not
hayatını
at all.
sürdürüyor.
In fact, the opposite is true. Instead, it lives on, alive,
Roman, insan
flourishing, and
hayatının
well, and is as
keşfedilme
prolific as ever.
sanatıdır.
The novel
İnsan hallerini,
represents the art
hayatın
of
ve
discovering
toplumların
human life.
ruhunu yansıtır.
It reflects human nature,
Büyük
the soul
romancılar,
of its communities,
dünyanın
and the spirit
alt
of
üst oluş
life itself.
dönemlerini,
The great
tarihin
novelists
taraflı,
created not
toptancı
only works
dilinin
pertinent to
dışında
their own country,
destansı
but
bir
works of
söylem
global
ve
importance
yüksek bir
by
yazarlık
stepping outside the
vicdanıyla
one-sided
dile
wholesale
getirmişler.
language of
Hem
history
yerel
and
hem de
employing their
evrensel
high sense of principle to
değerde
write
eserler
epic
üretmişlerdir.
discourses with about tumultuous periods in world
Geçtiğimiz
history.
yüzyılda
In the last
ruh
century,
bilimsel ve felsefi
developments in
kavrayışlarla
psychological and philosophical
roman sanatının sınırları da
concepts
genişledi.
have been mirrored in the expansion of the boundaries of the
varoluşa
art
anlam
of novel
katmak,
writing.
eğlenmek, eğlendirmek
Novelists have written with
ve
passion in their
Kundera'nın
attempt to bring
deyişiyle
meaning to existence or
ancak
to create
bir
and
romanın
recreate,
keşfedebileceği
and to quote
şeyi
Kundera,
keşfetmek
to
için
discover, quote, that
tutkuyla
which the
yazdılar.
novel alone can discover,
aşkı,
unquote.
insan yüreğinin karanlık ve aydınlığını,
They have attempted to fathom love, the darkness and light of the human heart, and the mysteries of the subconscious. With moving stories, they have laid out and examined the unjust attitudes of various political regimes that have abused human rights, human labor, and human freedom, and which have proved injurious to human dignity. By expanding these tragic stories from an individualistic level to a communal one, from within to without, a common human memory is created. The novel has unparalleled power to change life and to keep fresh the collective memory.
Roman sanatının sonunu hayal etmek.
It is harder for a book-loving novelist to imagine the death of the novel than it is to imagine their own demise. And fortunately, there is no need to do so, or there is no need for this. Whilst the world has been striding forwards from the industrial era towards a more modern day, the novel has managed to keep its place firmly on the agenda. This is even true during the last 100 years and our digital age of ever-progressing technology. Even today, when we find ourselves bombarded by empty and meaningless visual images, we can still take refuge in good novels that contain that special element of the human spirit. And if such an influential art form were to be wiped out, we would also have to give up hope for other treasures and beautiful creations of humanity. And whilst the debates surrounding the novel may differ according to the times or their intellectual level, the main subjects around which discussion occurs are critical and academic questions: the novel and political ideology, the various movements of the novel and its commercialization due to technological developments. Academic discussions usually remain limited to within universities. But because the discussions are oriented towards outdated or currently fashionable issues, they can be somewhat artificial and tedious. As for the discussion surrounding or rather, I cannot write any papers around scientific subjects anymore, for example. And as for the discussion surrounding literary movements, it has mainly been the domain of philosophers and critics. And for years now, the various styles and new narrative practices of the novel have been topics of debate. And the era of the critic is over as well, and modernism, if not abandoned, has at least been declared outdated. And due to its deficiencies, postmodernism too has become untenable. These days, more is spoken of the future of the novel than of the novel itself. Is this perhaps because now it has more freedom than ever before? Nowadays, everything is possible, and the novel can reach out to vast new areas thanks to its inventiveness, allowed by its being both an explicit and a practical tool which can be attuned to people and their constantly changing sensibilities. The powers of the novel to push the boundaries artistically or to engage in linguistic experimentations are vast. The author is free to do whatever he or she wishes between the covers of the book. The novel, which has no boundary other than its own narrative and aesthetic style, never ceases to search for novelty. If it is to find new fields of existence in an electronic medium and an on-screen format, then this will be alongside the existing printed form and will allow it to evolve in a new and altogether different manner. We cannot deny the fact that most readers today invariably find themselves in front of a screen and that the very practice of reading is declining in importance. It has been confirmed that in developed countries, less than half of all adults read novels, and the number of readers, especially among the young, is rapidly falling. The situation is no doubt related to changing habits in the use of on-screen technology. technology. The computer screen is used for entertainment, learning, leisure, shopping, and self-expression, and is now a fundamental part of everyday life. Nevertheless, the fact that most readers find themselves in front of a screen does not mean that they will cease to read. The drop-off in reader numbers should be ascribed to the struggle of paper versus screen and the pursuit of convenience. As reading from the screen becomes more widespread, the novel may still emerge victorious from the process. In Turkey, 500 novels are printed on average each year, many of which are first-time novels. In 2012, the number apparently increased to precisely 780 novels. We may be a country with a poor education system and a low literacy level, but this is the country we're living in, low literacy levels and poor education system. However, known authors can attain relatively high circulation. And the bookshops in Turkey are filled with beautiful books. They are overloaded even with beautiful books, and avid young people as well. On the internet there are a great many books, literary magazines, websites, and lively forum debates concerning the novel. I've also heard that very informative narrative-based novels are being written in hypertext format in the electronic media. I've heard of it, I haven't seen it myself. And in short, interest in the novel remains very substantial. And as the technology of the near future continues to develop and invent itself, it will allow novels to be written of such interest and appeal that we cannot yet imagine. What will the future electronic novel writer be like? A gifted trickster? An insensitive code breaker, or a carefully considered emotive writer? I don't know. My fear is, however, that depth and content may suffer in the name of technique, and that the soul of the novel may get lost. Because at the same time as making our lives easier, technology has become a symbol of intelligence. It changes the way in which we feel, think, and see. The world under a technical gloss sterilizes all types of imaginative processes and paralyzes our own voice. Even more than this, there is even worse, it also plays with our desires. The end result will be that the novel, like it or not, will be forced into a much more confined context than that which it hoped to attain. What is more, the internet has not yet developed a language that is distinctive enough to compete with the art of novel writing. However, it is highly possible, of course, that that point will be reached relatively soon. It is not easy to do so, and I'm not expectant of it, but it might happen. We must also remember that technological advances do not always give the required results. There was talk that the printed novel would disappear as e-book devices became widespread, but this did not happen, at least for now. Those marketing the devices tried to assure people that electronic reading was going to be the easiest and most pleasurable form of reading, but attention also fell on the higher than expected cost of such items. And why should we make do with only an electronic object? I can't see many people giving up on the paper book anytime soon. It's portable, user-friendly, it's safe to use, and you can even go to sleep with it in your hand. And I'm quite optimistic in that sense. We will not refrain from using the printed version of books anytime soon. In my opinion, some of the problems threatening the future of the novel are market conditions that encourage uniformity and are becoming shallower day by day. As consumerist society and popular culture try to reinvent themselves as a visual language by way of the novel, they succeed only in putting a gloss on trashy novels. Once the language and content of novels is reduced to facility and vulgarity, the taste of the readers can be pulled down with it, resulting in a seriously negative outcome. As some publishers, for the sake of sales, steer promising novelists towards writing about a cheap kind of spirituality, sex, weak topical subjects, and encourage them to write about a corny kind of mysticism, they turn the novel into a cheap thrill, and as these fast food books, quote-unquote, sells in their millions around the world, novels of real quality sit in their thousands, gathering dust on the shelves. Of course, it is not always easy to draw the line between bad and good. Every reader will choose a novel that is on their level. However, aggressive advertising and the pressure of widespread popular culture have a very real effect on the choice of the reader. The writer that does not stand firm against the market will not only suffer, but will not be able to stop their works being exploited and pirated on the internet. The fight against piracy of material in Turkey has not made great headway. Whilst it is not so apparent in the big cities, illegally printed books are openly sold in bookshops in Anatolia, and novels are downloaded without permission from the internet.
Karmaşık bir değerler kaybı sürecinden geçiyoruz. Ama roman ve bireysel psikolojiler her şeye rağmen
we are going through a complicated period in which some values are being lost, but despite everything, the novel and individual psychology continue to retain their significance. Writers are still awarded recognition and respect, and there is still enormous interest in creative writing centers and courses. Writing a novel remains to be many people's greatest dream. We are surrounded by surprising new narratives, constructs, and new languages. The world of the novel is still so rich and alluring that it beats the dominating visual image hands down.
Büsbütün bir alternatif olamıyor. Bu arada romanın siyaset ve ideolojilerle
at the moment, it appears that the importance of the novel's discourse on its relationship to politics and ideologies has declined considerably when compared to former times, and this happened at a time when the world's economic and political problems are at an uncomfortably high level, with falling regimes, ever-growing uncertainties, bloodshed, and natural disasters. Our hopes that this century would turn out for the better are rapidly dwindling. The outlook for the future is hazy. What is humankind and the world waiting for? How will the economic crisis end? Will there be another large-scale war? Will there be new wars? Or just one single large-scale war? In such a situation, can the writer really remain shut away in their own world, indifferent to events around them? Can they shut their eyes and disassociate themselves from what is going on? The answer is both yes and no. If such is the case, we can say that the political spirit of our times has not sufficiently been reflected in novels. Whilst enjoyment and indifference are being heralded, politics is regarded with contempt and is being further hacked apart by outdated and negative examples. No matter which oppressive regime is in question, we can never endorse the quote-unquote regimented practices that are carried out in the spheres of literature and the arts, such as censorship and persecution of writers, attempts made on their lives or their being silenced by exile. We should feel utter contempt for the restrictive prohibitions placed upon writers to prevent them from freely expressing themselves. Politics is to be found everywhere where people exist, and to be non-political is also a political stance. We are witnessing how literature, and specifically how the novel, is brought under control by various subtle pressures, how certain subjects are desensitized, blunted, and made into media-style copy before being accepted. It is a very good thing that there are wonderful world writers of all ages that do not hold back now from subtly and expertly exposing and criticizing the latest spurious plan for our happiness. Whilst inclining towards well-founded subjects, they continue to make their readers happy and to write fabulous novels. The years ahead will tell us in a more definite way just how the developments we are currently experiencing will affect writers and the novel. In which direction will things set off? What will be the principal dynamics, and from where will the subject matter be born? More importantly, when will marketing, which adversely affects writers' insight, vision and the creative process, hit rock bottom? And there is a great uprising in America already, and we have seen the first signs of that already. In order to protect its spirit and passion and to win back its lost heritage, the novel today must grasp life in all its aspects, intuit all the signs, and feel the pain of the times. Otherwise, as humankind's downward spiral increases in velocity, the novel too will draw its last breath.
Yes, are you going to respond to this?
I love the observation that each generation believes it's observing the death of the novel. I think every generation thinks they're observing the death of everything because we can't really believe that the world will continue after we've gone, and the novel is one of those things that we treasure and believe is going to die with us. But what's actually happening is the novel is changing. It's turning into something that we don't necessarily recognize because it's not what we grew up loving. But all art forms are in a constant state of flux. And the novel has never been static. No art form is ever static. I'm thinking about the moral panics over Impressionism, for example, that all art was dying. Over the Fauvists, all art was dying. And I think that happens in every generation. A lot of the changes that we're seeing with the novel now are not stylistic, they're pragmatic, and they parallel changes in methods of generation that we see now. In time, we'll see stylistic changes caused by the internet because the method of production inevitably generates such changes. If we came back in 100 years, we might not recognize the novel, but to that generation, it will feel as if the novel, as they know it, is all there has ever been. And they too will foresee the death of the form. To give an example from Britain and America, the development of monthly magazines that you could subscribe to meant that novelists could publish books sequentially. So every month they would produce a chapter, and then it would be gathered together into the novels of, for example, Dickens and Poe. And it meant that they could make a living while they were writing them, which was very, very unusual. It was very radical. Byron, for example, didn't take any money from his poetry until quite late in his life. It wasn't seen as something that you could do for money. Now that's, very noble if you come from a lot of money. But if you don't come from a lot of money, Burns, for example, died broke pretty much because he couldn't make any money from writing. And what that does is it means that only certain voices are heard. The voices of very rich people are heard, but all those other stories are lost. Before that, writers had to have a large number of wealthy subscribers before they could convince a publisher to publish their book. People would have to pay for the book before the writer wrote it. The money would go to the publisher, and then they would get the book as an artifact at the end. And magazines meant that people from poor backgrounds could write, publish, and be heard. It was unthinkable before. And as I say, this is why we have the work of people like Dickens and Poe. And that must have seemed like the end of the novel as they had known it. Another example, All British novels published during the Second World War were 250 pages or less because of paper rationing. And it was during this period that Graham Greene produced his thrillers, which wouldn't have worked over 350 pages, I don't think, and is one of the reasons that Orwell's work, for example, is so powerful because it's very short. So these pragmatic changes make a big difference to the style and you know, produce quite radical shifts in novel writing. I'm going to talk about copyright and the way the internet produces work, but talking about Orwell, I don't know if you know this, but as readers, owning an electronic book is a different kind of ownership than buying a book. If you buy a book, that book belongs to you. George Orwell's book 1984 was produced on Kindle, and it turned out, and lots of people bought it. I think it was one of those books that was automatically downloaded onto e-readers when you bought it. And then the estate of George Orwell disputed this, and overnight, the book was 1984, overnight, 1984 disappeared from everybody's Kindle. Because you only have it on license from the company you bought it from. And very few people noticed this because they weren't reading it at the time. But a few people noticed it, that overnight 1984 was withdrawn. So books can be withdrawn because you don't own the physical artifact. But these are exactly the sort of pragmatic changes we're witnessing now. And one enormous difference, and this is a small thing that you may be completely unaware of, that is going to fundamentally change the development of the novel, is the preference for the Creative Commons license over copyright. Now, copyright, again, is a product of Dickens and Poe. Edgar Allan Poe died broke, even though he was a bestseller in France, because there was no international copyright agreement, so he didn't get any money from the books that he wrote that were published in France. All the money went to the publisher. And there's a big movement against copyright now. I think that it's starting in Sweden. You know, a lot of young people think copyright is, you know, they want to get rid of copyright and have absolute freedom. And I'm obsessed with politics. Anyone who wants freedom is playing a trick on you. Freedom from what? Freedom to what? That's what you have to ask. Never trust anyone who promises you freedom. So many fanfic sites automatically apply this Creative Commons license. It's slipping into journalistic article sites. So if you write for a journalistic site, they will apply that type of Creative Commons. Some short stories published on the internet by very well-known writers have this type of copyright applied. What it means is that the operators of the site do not have to observe or enforce normal copyright. And many writers are completely unaware of this difference. Old copyright means you have control of the material and your permission must be sought to use it. Creative Commons means anyone can use it, download it, and they can change it. They can change your endings, they can change your beginnings, they can change all your characters and your locations. They can fundamentally change the politics of anything you write. I would hate that because I think the novel will die with me. Obviously, the novel will die with me. But this could be one future. And the final version of the novel will be the one decided upon by the audience. This will be writing by committee. Now, before we throw our hands up, let's remember this is not a new thing. These are the final 4 lines of an ancient Irish love poem. This was passed from generation to generation for hundreds of years. So it's written by a committee. These are the lines. You have taken the east from me, you have taken the west from me. You have taken what is before me and what is behind me. You have taken the moon, you have taken the sun from me. And my fear is great that you have taken God from me. And that's from Donal, which is a poem that was passed orally for generations and added to. And if you really love that poem, I had that poem above my desk for 3 years and I read it every day. You start to notice the fractures in the poem and you start to notice things like the final stanza is one of maybe 12. The final stanza has 5 lines, and every other stanza has 4 lines, because somebody wrote a line that was so good, it was wrong, but it stayed in. So that's something absolutely beautiful that has been written by committee, by many people adding in and editing over generations and generations, and that was the final version that was arrived at, and it's extraordinarily beautiful, incredibly poignant. So novels may become a communitarian enterprise. Anyone who's ever tried to make any piece of art using a communitarian method, a true communitarian method, where, like true democracy, everyone has a say and no one gets their way, and then everyone's disappointed at the end. That's what democracy is. They appreciate how the final thing that is made tends to be compromising and a bit rubbish, usually. It's usually a bit rubbish. Sometimes, though, the work produced is unexpected and magical and extraordinary, because it is this special magical thing made by a group of people. At the moment, I'm engaged in making a film with my cousin, who is an artist. And we filmed all our very old aunts and uncles talking about growing up together. And we made a documentary. And then we hired a cinema. And my family's so big, we filled the cinema with our family. And we filmed them watching themselves. So the film is the film with them watching themselves all the way through. And I didn't mean to make that film, neither did she. We didn't really know what we were doing because it was a total joint enterprise. But even if the outcome is poor, these experiments move the possibilities forward. The artifact is not what's always important about these experiments. What is produced is literally an artifact of the journey. It's a memento, and it may not have intrinsic value as a novel. What comes out of the journey is that those who participate are changed, and they may be changed into great writers. It's easy to look back at the 19th century and say, oh, they published great novels then. But what we're looking at are the top 0.5% of everything published that has survived. It's easy to look at communitarian works and criticise because they're not original, because they have no regard to form, or they're not polished or skillful. In fact, we're bound to do that because no one becomes a writer unless they have very strong opinions about what a novel should be. Talking of should, I want to talk about high art and low art distinctions. Inga touches on readers finding their own level, and this is a theme that's come up in the conference all around the world. A lot of people have talked about shades of grey, which is not an issue here, I don't think. But let's be clear, even very clever people do not always read because they want to improve themselves or have their souls touched or understand you completely. They don't always want to see God. Sometimes people just read for fun. They read to cheer themselves up. They read for enjoyment or escape. And sometimes they read our novels to help them get to sleep. That is dismaying for writers to acknowledge. We want to believe there's a transcendental connection with each and every reader. Someone once said to be a great artist is to be misunderstood by millions. But no one wants to think about the reluctant reader who didn't like your book and can't be bothered finishing it, or was in a reading group or had to read it for a course and just pretended they had because they didn't like it. But the truth is that a novel, perhaps more than most art forms, depends for its function on the reception by the individual reader. They do half the work. It's nonsense, in novelistic terms, to talk of high or low novels. What we think of as high art novels can be read as superficially as a weather report in the hands of the wrong reader. And the inverse is true. Low art novels can be read as revelatory and freeing by other readers. Imagine you only read rarely. You've never seen a novel, and the first book you read, this is true for many people, it was cliché-ridden, it was a book with small words, the characters were obvious, and it was very, very manipulative. You might be incredibly affected because you brought no preconceptions about high art or low art, because you had not studied literature at university or read obsessively, and you had no idea who that writer was ripping off. You could be incredibly moved by that. This reading could be a truly life-changing moment for that reader. Is it less sincere because we don't like the book, that moment for them? Does it matter less? It cannot matter less. It seems that every year one giant novel, usually one that is easy to object to, takes the world by storm. The Da Vinci Code, Shades of Grey, and they are always met with bafflement by writers. How can this badly written, cynical book be selling better than my book? It doesn't make any sense. Publishers are baffled too. Most publishers want to publish books they feel really proud of. And why are people buying that? But here's the thing. There will not be one writer published by a mainstream publisher who has not been paid money generated by these awful books. If we feel very, very strongly about these books, then we should say to the publishers, do not give me any money from the profits of that book. Do not use any of that money to promote my book, and don't take me out for a very expensive fancy lunch with money from that book. We are far less above the mud than we like to think. And this is going to get worse. The pattern of book sales over the past 10 years is this. A smaller number of books sell in increasing numbers. The giant bestsellers, and many of them are pretty low art. They sell in bigger and bigger numbers. And the rest of us, experimental books, the difficult, the tricky, or uncomfortable books, they are selling less and less. And languages other than the big three of English, Spanish, and Chinese will sell less and will be translated less. Stories will be lost. Voices will be silenced. So we have to support each other, and even harder, accept support from each other. And we have to appreciate that we are not individual voices in a void. We are a chorus. Thank you.
Evet, teşekkürler ediyoruz.
Thank you very much.
Response. And well, I'm really disappointed now. I mean, çok kötü bir kötümserliğe doğru gidiyoruz galiba ama değil aslında.
Actually, I feel very pessimistic. But I think there is no room for
bunları
pessimism
dinlerken
here.
benim
We
aklıma
shouldn't
başka
be.
bir şey geldi.
But listening to all these, I
Romanlar,
actually pondered about something
romanda
else.
şöyle başka bir problem var
There's this
sanki.
problem about the
Bu
novel.
problem üzerinde ben hep düşünmüştüm.
And I kept thinking about
Doğrusu bir sonuca da
this
varamadım.
problem,
Şimdi
and I wasn't
bu
able
problem
to resolve
genelde
the problem.
modernizmin bir problemi.
This problem
Yani
is a
nasıl
problem of
anlatsam,
modernity.
eskiden mesela oturma odalarımızda çok süslü püslü koltuklar vardı. Her taraflarında çiçekler, şeyler, işte kumaş desenleri, çok ağır mobilyalar falan. Sonra onlar giderek
flamboyant colors, etc.
yapı söküme uğradı sanki.
But they
Bunlar
were deconstructed.
çiçekler
to
gitti,
speak,
şeyler
the
gitti,
flowers
yontmalar
vanished,
gitti, oymalar gitti, işte
all
ağır
the
şeyler
wooden
gitti.
work,
En sonunda
wooden
da
artwork
böyle
somehow vanished,
işte içi
and
kartondan
we
kütüphane
started
rafları ve bir
using
tane acayip böyle gayet
bookshelves made
sade
of little hardened cardboard,
masa,
so to
koltuk
speak,
falan kaldı.
plain minimalist
Yani ileride onlar da
tables and
giderse ne olacak?
sofas. And what are we
Çırılçıplak
going to
odalarda
do
oturacağız herhalde.
if
Yani
those
böyle
furnitures, those minimalistic
LCD
furnitures
televizyonlara
vanish
bakacağız.
tomorrow? We will just
Yani
sit
yaşamımızda
on the floor
böyle bir
watch
sadeleşme de
LCD
nereye
TVs,
kadar
I
sadeleşme?
mean,
Romanda
simplification
da ona
okay,
benzer bir şey var.
purification okay, but to what
Böyle
extent?
dekonstruktif bir
Where are the
yaklaşım.
limits of purification
İşte
or
böyle
simplification?
hep
I think this
sonucu
trend
okuyucuya bırakmak,
holds
işte
true
açık
for novel as well.
kapılar
Simple
bırakmak,
novel,
ondan
opening the
sonra
doors and
soyut
windows
bir anlatım
to the
vesaire.
reader,
Ama sonuçta
an
da yani
abstract way of telling a story,
bazen
letting the
insan soruyor
reader
yani
finish
sonra
the book.
yani sonra ne olmuş?
But so what?
Yani
Or
so
what's
what
next?
ya da işte yani anladık işte çok herkes
I
çok
understand.
kötümser, herkes
Everybody is
mutsuz.
very pessimistic.
İşte
Everybody is so
apartmanlarda,
unhappy.
dairelerde
We're living in
ışıklar
all these
gece saat
apartment
4'ten sonra
blocks.
açık kalırsa mutlaka bir kavga oluyor, bir
There's
şey
always
oluyor.
a fight if
Ondan
you
sonra
leave the lights open. You
işte
know,
herkes birbirine
this
zaten
and
çok
that.
kötü davranıyor.
Everybody is
Bunları
intolerant
kısa kısa
towards
anlatıyoruz.
one another.
Yorumu
We all
okuyucuya
have the
bırakıyoruz.
same
Her şeyi okuyucuya
feeling of
bırakalım o zaman.
pessimism, so it should be the
Sadece boş
reader
sayfalardan oluşan
who
böyle
should finish
minimalist
the
bir
book.
şey mi
And the
çıkacak
book
yani o
will,
zaman da?
are we going to end up with novels where there are blank pages or maybe a couple of words on each page, so we won't have to narrate anything. Then why do we need the novel in the final analysis? Because there's the news of the evening, everybody is killing everybody is aggressive,
bazen insanın aklına gelmiyor değil yani böyle nasıl bir roman olmalı ki bunların hepsini böyle yansıtsın ama onlara böyle bir sakinliğiyle bir karşı duruşta bulunsun yani ya da birçok şey anlatsın artık yani. Ne bileyim gerçekten böyle bir mesela şeyi doğayı anlatacaksa onu bayağı betimlesin yani. Sadece şey deyip geçmesin. Sazlığın kenarından hızlı adımlarla yürüdü. Yani, tamam da yani o sazlık tabii anlatılabilir de yani ama bazen de değil çoğu zaman anlatılmıyor. Anlatılmadan kalıyor. Her şey de izleyiciye bırakılıyor, okuyucuya bırakılıyor ya da. Acaba bu konuda sayın yazarlarımız ne düşünüyorlar? Merak ettim de onun için sorayım yani.
Ben sadece okura bırakılmadığını düşünüyorum. Yayıncılara da bırakılıyor.
It's only the reader which has the final says. Publishers also have a strong say here too, and Denise also said something similar. The publishers should make money so that they can pay for us as well. Maybe I'm too old, maybe I cannot really keep up, but I think I find this kind of attitude a little immoral.
Bir toplumun
at the end of the day,
en önemli organlarından bir tanesidir. Bu kadar soysuzlaşmasına nasıl göz yumabiliriz?
Social in a way or social entities, and I don't want to see publishers become so ignoble, so to speak.
İçimiz boşalsın. Basitleşelim.
Let's just make everything simple and stupid. Let's just read and talk about stuff which has no content. Let's not read anything which will lead us to think, to reflect. Let's not question the life at all. If you leave it at the hands of the publishers, if they make money only by books which have no content, then they would be more than willing to publish only those books. But I'm not talking about all the publishers here. I cannot say that all publishers only publish books that have no content. Maybe I misunderstood what Denise was saying when she talked about publishers paying our money out of those bestseller books. I would actually prefer to starve instead of being paid out of those best-selling books. This is all about the effort, the labor. I mean, this is a labor-intensive process. I mean, we have not actually experienced this trend in Turkey where everything goes, you know, that everything can interfere with your content. I'd rather not write if this is the way. I would at least keep certain pieces aside and wait for a more fair and just world. You know, why should I toil so much? You know, sacrifice from my health, from my private life, produce something that is on my own, and then just let people plunder it. Why would I do that? If it was guaranteed that it wouldn't be plundered, looted, maybe I would. But in the meeting in Edinburgh, one writer actually
adaleti sağlamak için devletin yazara maaş bağlamasını önermiş.
And she or he proposed that the government gives salaries to writers to actually secure justice. This is like a sick joke. I mean, we are living in a country where writers are censored, maybe imprisoned.
Fareler ve insanlar gibi klasikleşmiş kitapları bile sakıncalı gören
of Mice and Men was actually censored in Turkey. This is the kind of mentality that Turkish government has. And how can we actually advocate the argument that the rights of an author be protected, preserved by the government, and the government pays the authors? This is unthinkable. So this possibility is not there for Turkish writers. Pirated books are everywhere. You know, when you go to Asia Minor in
haklarımız çalınıyor, mağdur ediliyor ve buna karşı hiçbir önlem alınmıyorsa, alınan önlemler yetersiz kaldığı zaman daha güçlü önlemler alınmıyorsa zaten biz mağduruz. Bir kere daha yazalım.
So let's write, and then publish them on the internet. Then everybody tampers with the content, manipulates it. I wouldn't let that. I would rather not write at all.
I'm not responsible for the internet. I'm not proposing that this is the way we should all go. I'm just saying this is one possible future, but I'm not saying it's what I would like. You know, I think there are writers. I don't know what publishing's like here. But there are writers in Britain that publishers call prestige writers. And these are very beautiful writers who the biggest prize in British literary year is the Booker. And one year they made the mistake of publishing the sales figures for each of the books that had been shortlisted. And one of them had sold 127 copies. And it is an extraordinary book. It's fantastic. But nobody had bought it. And they hadn't bought it because it wasn't marketed properly. They hadn't bought it because you know, for any reason other than it was 800 pages and it was about something very specific. And not everyone's that interested in reading the way we read. I mean, we're a very special audience. Most people don't read like that. And that book would not have been published had it not been a prestige book. So the publisher takes money from something rubbish and spends it on a book like that. And that is how we are going to be able to get access to books that brilliant and that life-changing. And I think when China was saying that in Edinburgh, what he was saying was, we shouldn't leave it open to market forces. China is the last person, he's not a Stalinist, honestly, he's the last person who would want the government to be in control. But what he was suggesting was to have a formal pool of our resources and recognise that we are a body. Now, as soon as you suggest that, there are massive problems. Who's going to choose? Who's not getting chosen? Why are they not being chosen? Who gets paid what? But what he was saying was, we need to look at the market economy and say, is this the best way to decide who gets to speak? Because another thing that writers are very aware of is we lucky few have the time and the social resources and access to education and access to publishers and agents and can write. Now, you know, there are better writers than any of us out there who don't have the time because their mum's ill. There are better writers than any of us out there who have to make a living doing something else. There are better writers out there than us who died in wars. We're not the best, we're the luckiest. And we need to, you know, try and find other ways of finding voices other than the filter of the market. I think that's what China was talking about. But I would hate people to interfere with my work. And I would say if you very much disagree with that, make sure that copyright is preserved at least legally and make sure it's applied to all your work. Because, you know, you may find you know, a proto-fascist regime in 50 years' time has changed all your books and is using them as a basic text. You just don't know what's going to happen to your voice. It's about, you know, valuing your voice and fighting to protect it. It's not enough to speak. You have to be careful what you say. That's what I'm saying.
Evet, şimdi anladığım kadarıyla ben kendi çapımdan söyleyeyim. Anladığım bir şey varsa o da
as far as I understood,
wherever
high technology penetrates or whatever it penetrates, the art of novel writing is facing or has to face rather new unknown threats. And these threats should be taken quite seriously, and there are certain measures and precautions to be taken by writers and authors, despite the fact that these precautions that can be taken are limited.
Yaratıcılıkta ortaya çıkabilir. Tabii şimdi anlatım olarak roman tek anlatım formu da değil.
The novel is, of course, not the only form of writing or narrative or storytelling. That is what I wanted to say earlier.
İşin siyasetinin dışında yazarın söylem biçimi, bir şeyleri anlatma tarzı.
The discourse of the writer is what I had in mind. The art of the way, of how he writes, and that minimalistic notion negates itself. Minimalism has penetrated every kind of contemporary art form and is slowly but surely coming to an end and the same holds through for literature. All those ready-made paragraphs, copy-pasted from other places and then presented as if they were yours, or collages.
Anlatımı bence sınırlıyor yani.
Limit storytelling itself. I don't know what precaution or measure to take to prevent this, but it limits the scope of storytelling. So I think minimalism is here quite threatening, and we should definitely analyze this development and this movement. Storytelling and telling in itself is very important. Can I reply to that, by the way, says İnci? Yes, sure. I've heard similar things. And let's, those 50 Shades of Grey novel. And there was this vampire series, Twilight series. They sold millions and millions all over the world. They find a shadow writer for these books, and usually that's a housewife. And I don't believe at all that these housewives have written these books, because I cannot believe that a 50, 60-year-old housewife, not knowing what to do with herself anymore, finally had this spark and then wrote this bestseller. However, these are things made to make that novel interesting for millions of people. And there are a bunch of people actually putting their heads together and grueling about things and thinking how to make these books sell. I don't seem to remember who wrote those Twilight series, and they said that a housewife wrote that, and if you say that a housewife wrote this best-selling novel, then this is an immediate bestseller trigger. The content now of these best-selling novels has become void. And people have difficulties finding novels that actually question important issues in life. And people have been canalized into a certain path and have become sheep, if I may say so. Sheep always go into the same direction collectively, and people do likewise. And the books I've been mentioning have become bestsellers. They have been adapted into a motion picture, and you may know Ian McEwan, and he's an English author, and he earns quite an amount of money, and his books are okay. Of course, the publishers do want to sell in the end, or at the end of the day. However, please remember, the publisher is always the wealthy man in that equation. Sometimes my friend asks me, what what do you want the publishers to do? Or it's not the publisher's fault. And I reply in the following manner. Have you ever seen a publisher who is crying because he doesn't earn any money? No. Have you ever come across a poor publisher? I haven't personally. At least all the publishers in Turkey are quite rich. And they still want to earn more and more money. And this is why they do not refrain from manipulating people's minds.
If I could just, the Twilight books are written by Stephanie Meyer, and the Shades of Grey woman, I can't remember her name, but these are real people, and they're not housewives. They're just, most writers who are published and promoted now are young, and you're more likely to get published if you're young and good looking. And the idea that a 50-year-old woman would write a book that would sell millions disproves the belief that you have to be young and good looking to write books. That's just bullshit. Where is that from? It's a book. It's not a bikini calendar. You know, the Shades of Grey woman, she definitely wrote her book because she published it on the internet and then it was published. And I know she's sincere because she's very embarrassed. She's rich, but she knows her book is crap. She's genuinely very embarrassed. She wrote what she thought would be some trash to go on an ebook, and it was, you know, masturbation material. And then people knew who she was, and she's very embarrassed, and there's no doubt in my mind that she did write it. Stephanie Meyers was actually, you know, she's presented as an overnight success, but she was writing those books for a long, long time. I hate those books. I hate them. But people genuinely love them. They're not being tricked into reading them. They mean something to those people. They mean something to the teenage girls who are reading them. And good luck to them. I don't care if you're reading something I hate, as long as you're reading something, because it's such a wonderful experience. And you must come to London, Inga, and I will show you crying publishers, because they are scared now. I'll show you some. They are scared, and publishers are joining. Big companies are joining together. Amazon, they're terrified of Amazon, who are setting up agents. It's like they're your manager and your boyfriend. Amazon are starting their own agencies for writers and publishing writers straight onto Amazon. They have this thing. David Simon, who wrote The Wire, and a number of other big writers, I'm sure Stephanie Meyers was one of them, were all invited to the Amazon secret compound. They sent private planes to pick all these writers who sell a lot up, and they took them away for the weekend to Amazon Castle Grayskull, which is like a golfing, swimming, spa resort just for Amazon employees. And a lot of them refused to go. David Simon refused to go. And they didn't really want to make any deals. They just wanted to talk to them and get to know each other. And this is the way Amazon are. They're massive. They're making huge amounts of money. They're dominating the market, and they're squeezing publishers out. And the publishers who publish these trashy books are quite embarrassed by them. They take the money and they spend them on prestige books. But, you know, I think a lot of writers are quite adversarial, and the person that we see most often is a publisher, and they're the person that gets the blame. But actually, it's a dynamic. It's complicated, you know.
Evet, şimdi bir ara verelim.